2020. First item up would be roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Elizabeth Hausauer,
Here.
Michael Hill. Kyra Lucas indicated she may not attend. Elizabeth Hawk. Danielle Massey.
She's here.
Michelle Hazen.
Here.
Bill Warner.
Yeah.
Nicole Nesberg indicated she would not be able to attend this evening. Jay Reeves.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. Next item up would be adoption of the agenda with the addition of public comment after new business.
So moved.
Okay, we have that. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Do we have to roll call it, or don't we have to go individually?
I think we're fine for these items. It's when we get to the individual.
Oh, okay. Then aye.
Okay. Next item up would be the announcement. Mr. Simmons?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Section 30-3.5 of the Land Development Code establishes the Historic Preservation Board, including its composition and duties and authority. The Historic Preservation Board procedures are set forth in Section 30-4.28G of the Land Development Code. Appeals of Historic Preservation Board decisions are to the Appeals Reviewing Authority as provided in Section 30-3.58 of the Land Development Code. The notice of appeal shall be filed with the city within 30 calendar days of the effective date of the board decision at issue.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Simmons. Next item up would be approval of minutes. Do we have any?
No, I'm just going to give you an update on that. We're still working on those. I believe it was at the August meeting. There was a request to, there was a discussion about solar panels. So there was a request to add additional information to those. And I'm also continuing that with the minutes for the August meeting, because I believe that's when we had a presentation from the city attorney's office. So I want to make sure we have all of that information included, and the same for under board discussion for September meeting when we had some discussion about Seminary Lane. So, and I'll go more into detail about that when we get to the board items.
Okay.
They will be on the agenda for the next meeting though, all of the minutes.
All right, thanks, Ms. Thomas. Next item up would be old business then.
And so I'll go ahead and handle these. These are the two items that the board has heard, I believe, twice already. I guess I'll go ahead and read them both into record. Petition HP-20-49 and HP-20-50, Elliott Larkin Reynolds, 2 LLC owner, certificate of appropriateness to construct a 2-story single-family dwelling with associated modifications to the front porch step located south of the intersection of Northeast 3rd Avenue and Northeast 9th Street. These are vacant lots within the Northeast Residential Historic District. And I'm just going to pull up the staff report and share my screen, because again, we've kind of gone over this project already. I believe also the applicant is on the call, so I'll also move him over as well in order to ask, so that the board can ask him some questions.
Okay.
Okay, is everyone able to see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes.
So I'm just going to go up and show kind of what was initially submitted to us. I believe when it first came before the board, I believe back in August. And so this is what was provided to us initially. And so they've provided updated renderings. Let me pull up the updated design. Okay, are you able to see the updated elevations?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So let me also include the applicant as well. So as you can see, they did modify the roof pitch along with the porch, and it looks like there's an additional window that's been added to the right of the door as well.
Okay, is there any comment of the board? Questions?
I think it's a lot better than what we've seen before.
Yeah, it's a significant improvement.
Yeah, I'm happy that we have piers in the front and that the porch is wood and that there's some detail in the gable. I like that the upstairs windows are enlarged.
Mm-hmm.
That's all good. I guess the only problem I have is with making the porch depth 6th rather than 8. I thought we put that to bed the first time around. That would be my only comment.
So now I believe we have Elliot on the line as well. So if the board has any questions for him, he's available.
Hey there. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, thank you. Yeah, we did change the front porch to 8 feet, so that is reflected there as well. I'm going to share screen if I can.
Okay, so can I interject? So Elliot, you're not asking for the revision on the porch any longer?
You're not asking for that revision
Okay.
any longer.
So Yvette, does the application need to reflect that? Because it still says that it's asking for 6 feet rather than 8.
That could just be addressed with the board recommendation.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. I'm going to share some of the inspiration. All right. Are you guys seeing this presentation? Okay, great. So this is what it was looking like. Here are a few houses that we're taking inspiration from. Took the gable and one of the Hardy bands from this, and this house has a really nice circular window that we just think it adds a lot to it, and also has the larger window upstairs, the 1-1, the hip roof, and this house as well. So this is what we're asking to have approved today. We think it really addresses all the concerns that you guys brought up to the board at the last meeting, and I'd be happy to address or hear of anyone's comments. And here's the type of material we intend to use for the gable. It's the Hardy half rounds.
Good.
Well, it's a big improvement.
I have a question about the placement of the windows, because on the different views that you've given, it changes where the windows are. Some of them, the windows look somewhat lined up and symmetrically placed, and sometimes they don't. So on most of the houses that you see on the renderings that you gave for the inspiration, you'd see that the windows are mostly lined up from the first floor to the second floor, and the spacing between the windows. So which representation here gives the best view, or is it the way I see here where it looks like there's like a foot on one side of the left upper window?
So you'd like to see the upstairs window in line with the front door, and the upstairs window on the right in line with the window beneath it?
Most of the houses that you see, the windows are somewhat lined up, and the doors are they're somewhat lined up, so they bring some symmetry to the house, and that's one thing that I don't see here, but I'm just like in number one looks like it's a little bit more symmetrical than rendering number two. I know that I'm sorry, number three. I know that's I believe, is that the rear of the house? Is that
Yes,
a
that's the
French
rear.
door on the rear of the house?
Yes.
Yeah, obviously from the street you won't be seeing that one, but the front does look more symmetrical. But yeah, that upper window in the door, and then the upper window with the lower windows, they're just kind of off. And is that something that can be addressed, or is that just because of?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we can work on that. Happy to.
Yeah, something I wanted to point out is where you have the jog in the building, and that's the elevation that the windows don't really line up much, which is a function of the floor plan. That would be facing the mirror of it over the driveway. It wouldn't really be that visible from the street. But the bottom elevation would be visible, side elevation would be visible from the street, and that's the one where, things line up reasonably, Okay. Further questions or comments?
Yeah, I guess I'm with Danielle on that symmetry, and most specifically the way the front door lines up. But so if it's an easy enough thing to adjust a little bit, Elliot, that would be nice. But otherwise, it's a great improvement. It's going to be a cute house.
Yeah.
Thank you. And just a reminder, this is going to be two houses. This is just a representation for both of them.
I know this is outside our venue, but what are you envisioning for color? Something fairly neutral?
Probably, yeah. We don't have any decisions made about color yet.
Yeah, the house on Northeast 8th Avenue that you used as an inspiration house, that's a lot of the reason that house works is because it's so neutrally painted, I think. It gives it a grandeur that I think sometimes doesn't happen when you have too many colors,
Okay, noted. Thank you.
Bill?
Again, picking up on the front elevation, east facing, to align the windows and the door would contribute a lot to its appropriateness.
Okay, that's a clear revision that we can make that change. And send it back and potentially maybe get a conditional approval based on that.
I have a question about the door in the rendering. It's just a little bit difficult to see what's going on with that door. What I know there was originally maybe a little light next to it, or so I'm just seeing some horizontals and some verticals. Do you have an example of the door?
It's just a half light door, and what you're seeing is the stairs inside.
Oh.
The architect made it translucent so you can see some of the lines from the stairwell.
Yeah.
So
My comment on the entrance door, typically for this character, you would either do very high set lights or a full light on the door, but not a back door. You would do a half light, or a side door, you do a half light. But on the front, you'd either do full or very high set lights across the top.
I'd like to steer away from a full light on the front door just for security purposes. So we'd be happy to change it to a light that's set up high.
Yeah, fine.
That's fine. I was going to say something else, Elliot. If you move the door over to be underneath the window upstairs and the staircase is over to your left, you might want to flop the round window over in front of the staircase as a possibility.
Move the round window where?
Over to the other side of the door, because you'll have probably room for it there where the staircase is.
Yes,
It's up to you, but I think it would work either place.
Okay.
Also, the door, like if you are going to move it, having that also centered on that one portion of the porch, I think would be more consistent with historical houses as well. Usually they're somewhat centered on those piers and whatnot.
Mhm.
Not always.
Not always.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, I think you want to line it up with the window up above. That's probably more.
Right. That's
visual.
more important than the yeah.
I think the other thing is I'm just looking at the stairs themselves. I think typically you'd see the stairs run from pier to pier, right? I mean, and especially if that door is becoming a little more centered, it looks like the stairs are off to one side and
They're
perhaps.
running up the wall. Yeah,
Mhm. I
which
feel
is
like
typical of this type of house.
it's what?
Typical of this type of house, it would run up one side.
Just one.
Yeah,
So if the door shifts over though, where will the stairs shift as well?
No.
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 no, the stair for these narrow type houses, like the Fort Victorians used to be, and like the ones that are still in University, you always have the staircase run right up the side wall.
No,
The
I think
entrance-
she's talking about the exterior stairs, not the interior stairs.
Yeah, the exterior.
She's talking about the stairs up to the
Oh,
porch.
the exterior stairs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. I understand. Sorry. Yeah,
Sorry, I missed that too.
we can move those stairs so that they're centered inside the two piers or the two
Yeah.
columns.
Yeah, that looked better.
I think what I'm missing too that you see in a lot, and it might be nice, you know how you see the on either side of the stairwell, there's often like a I don't know, find the words here, it's like a little concrete wall with a cap on it or something. I think, you know, just to designate if you're not going to have the entry, I think actually what the yellow home that you included, I see it there for sure. Yeah. You see how the stairwell has some things off to the side. It's sort of like a you know, concrete wall with a cap on it. Sort of creates more of that. This is the entry.
And it goes from column to column. It doesn't stop in the middle of the column like she was mentioning.
Right, right. And I think that just when I'm thinking of other homes, I think that that's pretty typical that you would see something like that.
Well, Michelle, the situation is if you get over 5 feet, you got to have a handrail in the middle. And nowadays they're making you put handrails on the staircase anyway. So the little wing walls, which were typically after 1900, and a lot of houses had them put on that didn't originally have them. The problem is they do kind of conflict with the handrail if you're not careful.
Is this house going to require a handrail? What's the height of the
Insurance
porch?
companies are insisting on it nowadays.
Even if you've only got 2 steps? Elliot, is that really just 2 steps up?
That is just 2 steps. I was under the impression that we weren't required to have a handrail.
I thought you only had to have a handrail if it was like 33 inches or 4 steps.
No, your minimum is 3 risers
Oh,
anywhere.
3. Okay.
3
That's it.
risers, 3 risers. Not 3 steps. You've got your upper landing, a tread, and your lower landing. That's
Right.
3 risers. And at this point, we can expect to be required to provide a handrail.
Good.
Right. Now the porch is a different matter. You know, that's 33 inches or 30 if you're above 30 inches on the porch. But for the staircase, they're pretty much requiring that. That's in code, I believe.
So how high up is the porch?
Less than 30 inches.
That one's less than 30?
Yes.
Yeah,
Huh.
so that has no railing requirement.
So it doesn't because it's only 3.
Yeah. The
3
porch,
risers.
No.
The-
Oh,
no,
no.
The
the
has
porch,
Yeah, the
the
porch
porch
doesn't need
has,
it. Yeah.
right.
The porch doesn't, but the stairs will.
But the stairs
require
do?
railing.
The
Hmm.
stairs do.
So what kind of railing, and that's not something we're seeing here, so what kind of railing would we be looking at?
It's a great question. What type of railing would you guys find appropriate for this type of house?
Metal is, after, none of these would have had railing in the beginning. And so given where we are at this point in time, the least conspicuous is a metal railing.
But what's the railing going to attach to when it gets to the porch? It's just
You-
going to hang out in space?
It's screwed, no, it's actually cored into the concrete and otherwise fastened to the porch deck.
Yeah, a lot of them, they have just like a metal conduit bent I don't know if that's still what you would put on a new construction, but the older houses, when they added them in, they used just a simple metal pole.
Yeah, there are some details available there that are readily available that would be relatively period appropriate.
Yeah, but something simple, I think, is the point.
It's not very simple, very simple. Just the vertical support and the handrail.
Right. If you had railing on the porch, then you would do something more elaborate to match up with that. But in this case, something simple is probably the best.
So you're not required to have balusters? It can be
Correct.
open?
Yeah, it's not a railing.
Not a guardrail,
It's not. It's just a handrail.
just a handrail.
Gotcha.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, so you
No
probably
Coke can rule.
have two to three supports.
Probably two.
Probably two in this case will be fine.
So just top and bottom with the handrail, the two supports on either side, and just real simple.
It could just be two vertical supports and a top
Yeah.
hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that's depicted in the code.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So,
Any further comments?
yeah, I have a question. So are we approving two identical houses? Am I understanding?
I believe they're mirror images.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that's how we looked at it last time, is because they're mirror images, lumped them together.
Just seems, I mean, it just seems a little out of the norm to have two mirror image homes in this area. I'm hard pressed to think of where we have that. I mean,
Well, actually, there are several.
The ninth are well, they are a little bit different, aren't they?
No, I can point out it's on 7th Street at 2nd Avenue headed north. The two houses there, the one on the corner and the Richards occupy, and the one to the north of that are mirror images of the same plan. And they were both built about 1913.
Also on Northeast 3rd Avenue and Northeast 4th Street, there's two, one right across the street from the other one, that are identical. That's right around me.
And in fact, the two houses facing Thomas Center, one is now on 3rd Street, but they were both mirror images. The one to the east in approximately 1926 got moved to 3rd Street and replaced, but those were mirror images of the same house.
Well, and in reality, my 5 houses in a row here were all the same house.
Correct.
Right. So it's not unusual.
so they'll just be, when you say mirror image, they're going to be flipped then? The door will be on the other side? Is that what we're doing here? Okay.
Yes.
The entry doors will be either together or separate.
And
It'd be opposites.
I guess the question for Elliot then, I mean, I think, and this, and again, we don't mandate colors, but I mean, I think some differentiation would be nice in this particular situation. Is that, Elliot, I guess that's a question for you. I mean, is that something that's possible or?
Absolutely. One thing that we've done in the past is change the gable material or the gable style, like a board and batten style. We did one time with a staggered hardy. That was something, or we could do, more square shingles as opposed to the circular ones for the dome shaped ones. That's a possibility.
I'll comment that I think maintaining.
And then also, we would definitely change the.
Uh-oh, did we lose him?
I'm here. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
You would definitely change. You cut out there, Elliot. You would definitely change what?
Oh, the paint colors on the 2 units. The different paint colors. It's a variety. Did you hear the difference in the gable? Did you hear that part before I cut out? Okay.
Bill, I think you had a comment on that?
Yeah, I think rather than to, I thought your proposal in terms of the finished material was a very good one. And I would be more inclined to maintain the material and use something like Century of Color as a guide to select your, make your selection for color combinations of trim, body color, and accent.
Okay.
Okay. Any further comments from anyone? Do you have any comments from the public?
No, sir, not at this time.
Thank you. All right, would somebody like to venture a motion?
Move to approve HP 20-49.
Can I, before we do, can I ask one other question? So the windows, it's a little difficult to determine like the trim around them. Is that, I know that that's been a big point of contention with some of the other approvals that we've made recently. Have we clarified what kind of windows are going in?
Are you talking about the windows themselves or the trim around the windows?
Both.
Okay, so the trim is potentially going to be hardy board with that's 1/2-inch pieces, and then on top it's going to be I don't know what you call it, but just cut at a 45-degree angle so it has some character extending past the top of the window, and then the windows themselves are going to be vinyl 1/1 windows.
Okay. The brings something cutting the top at 45-degree angles, not a detail.
No, that would be a poor performer and completely inappropriate.
You were doing so well there, Elliot. So well.
What would you like to see there?
Let's go back and look at some of the other houses. So
You have a headboard that's the full width.
All right, how about this one?
I'm not catching the audio.
Yeah, sorry. What was that?
I think he's frozen at the moment, but
Right,
I would just suggest a thicker headpiece like all these traditional houses have, maybe a 6-inch board at the head and just a square cut on them.
And in most of them, we also see some sort of a sill, correct? I mean, at the bottom.
Yeah.
Some sort of differentiation. I mean, that's one of the things as far as a defining characteristic of these houses. It's really, they're simple, but I think the windows are really something that we see some detail in. That photo there is a good one.
I mean, would we all agree that we like this window?
No. The apron below the sill is totally period inappropriate.
Well, what about the detail above at the top?
The detail above is fine.
Yeah, what you're seeing there is actually a piece of crown mold with a cap on top of it, but viewed from a distance, it does give you a 45-degree appearance. Yeah. And that may be what Elliot's picking up on. And he probably wants to keep it simpler, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Would you be opposed to doing the molding at the top, Elliot? Because you can do that out of PVC. I mean, do I even say that? What's that?
Elliot's mic is off. I was just pointing out.
I think, Elliot, you're muted.
Okay. Yeah, I heard what you said about the molding at the top. That sounds very reasonable. especially if we can do it in PVC. That would be, that'd be ideal for what we're looking at.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun in this case.
Yeah, just don't copy the bottom because the bottom of the window is not appropriate.
Elliot, you know my son Sam and the yellow house I just did on Ninth Street? They did that PVC detail above the windows because it was missing on a lot. And I know you're building those other 2 houses on Ninth, below University.
Yes.
So look at that and you'll see it was really slick and it looks great.
Oh, I didn't realize you were his mother. Nice.
I am.
There you go.
So, and then the windows themselves, you said the windows are actually, I'm sorry, was that vinyl? And are we in the district? Are we approving that in the district?
It's a new house.
So we're okay there? Okay.
So it'll be
What were we saying about the
reflective.
dimensions of the trim? Were we happy with the dimensions of the trim?
Well, what I was saying is the 3.5-inch trim for the headpiece, you might have to make it a little bigger to put, to be able to put the crown up there and all that. Yeah, but typically the head trim is always a little thicker on a traditional house.
And how about the bottom of the windows?
The bottom, you just typically have a sill detail, but not an apron below it. The apron normally happens inside the house if you're trimming it out.
I'm just going to throw this out there. Would we rather see 2/2? No?
No,
Okay.
Probably not, because it wouldn't be true divided.
Okay.
no, 1/1 is much more common than a lot of people would like to think.
Okay.
That probably is the default.
Say that?
That's kind of the default window that you see the most of.
I know.
So as far as the houses go, so they're going to be side by side. So the one that we're looking at, is this on the south or is this on the north?
Let me share again it'll be clear. Okay, so if you look at the top right here, we are looking at the house on the left, which is to the south. And they're both going to have a shared driveway in between the 2 houses.
Okay. So I'm trying to think of what is just to the south of this house. 'Cause
It's a blue house, a craftsman style, I think, or bungalow, I'm not sure.
It's kind of bungalow style, yeah. Okay. Is there anything else?
Yes, we talked about the fence for the house to the north, and what we were talking about is taking down those privacy fence panels, and then just putting up a 4-foot picket fence
Much better.
in the same location, the 4-foot picket fence.
Is everybody okay with that?
What kind of picket fence is it going to be? Is it going to be off the shelf or is it going to be handmade? And what is it made out of?
What do they make those out of? Just pine, I think.
Okay, so
Yeah, pretty standard. The scallop of that you find at Lowe's.
That would be subordinated to the front plane of the house.
Well, it depends on the front. I think the actual front of the house is on Northeast 3rd Ave. And so this would be, I mean, because it's a corner lot.
Yeah. Wait a minute. The south one?
No, he's talking about the house on the corner, Bill. He's not talking about these two houses.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I have the street view pulled up if you want me to share my screen so that you can see what I guess he's referring to.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
Okay. So can everyone see the street view?
Yep.
And Bill, were you referring to this here?
No, I was talking. Yeah, no, I was talking about in regard to the new work.
Okay.
I see that what appears to be the two curb cuts there where the new work would be.
Sorry, it's blurred for some reason.
There's just one curb cut right now. We would just have to move it and bring it up to FDOT standards.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that there's this barricade fence in association with the corner house.
Yeah, but that's what we're talking about, Bill. He's going to take that down and make it a
Right.
4-foot picket fence.
Yeah, that would be a big improvement.
Agreed.
The other concern I have is the code recommends that you don't do a off-the-shelf fence, that you do something that's a little bit more personal and unique and not just pulled off the shelf from the like Home Depot or Lowe's. So is there a way that you could make it a little bit more original than just off the shelf?
There is, I mean, the reason that we wanted it to be that off the shelf type is because there was already a fence there when we bought it.
Right.
And we wanted, and that's still on the inside of that privacy fence serving a function. So when we take that down, that's going to be displayed. And we were just trying to match what was already there.
Okay.
So looking at the street view, so these two homes, and we're not giving any variances on setbacks on this, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So just looking, so we're going to see it looks like there's some are there mature trees on the south side of this lot on the left, closest to the bungalow? Or is it fairly clear already?
No, there are definitely trees on the south side. We did have the arborist come out. It was a while ago. I'd have to refresh my notes on what type of trees were there, but nothing stood out as something that we'd be really missing. I think it was a couple of water oaks that we'll have to do some mitigation for.
Okay, any other board comment? Okay, Bill, would you like to resume your motion?
I don't know where I left off. I'll let somebody else have a go at it.
Would anybody else like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion, I think. Are we going to make the motion for both 49 and 50, or do we have to do them individually?
Individually.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that HP 20-49 be approved with the contingency that the front porch be 8 feet deep, not 6, and that the window detail involve a crown molding above, no apron below. Anything else, anyone?
Correct. It's not really crown molding, just
Well, what are we calling it?
molding.
Molding. Okay, molding detail above.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
The symmetry of the windows needs to be added in there as well.
The what?
The door.
Oh, you're right. You're right. And with and adjusting the front
Alignment.
door to align with the window above.
Okay. All right, Bill, that's okay with you?
Yep. Yep.
Thanks, Daniel.
Okay, I guess it's time for roll call. Jason?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Elizabeth Hausauer,
Aye.
Danielle Massey,
Aye.
Michelle Hazen,
Aye.
Bill Warner,
Aye.
Jay Reeves.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay.
Do you want me to go ahead and make the same motion for 50?
Yes.
All right. Do I have to restate it, Jason, or can we just add the new number?
I think add the new number indicating the same conditions as the previous number.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion that we approve HP-20-50 with the same conditions as HP-20-49.
Okay. Second, anyone?
Second.
All right, Bill. All right, Mr. Simmons.
Okay. Elizabeth Hausauer,
Aye.
Danielle Massey,
Aye.
Michelle Hazen,
Aye.
There you go.
Bill Warner,
Aye.
Jay Reeves.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay.
Yay, Elliot, finally success.
Good luck with it. All right, Ms. Thomas. That would bring us to new business.
Yes, sorry, I'm doing double duty tonight, so trying to get my bearings. Okay, let's see, petition HP-20-61, Florence Ilofsky, owner, certificate of appropriateness to remove a metal roof and replace with asphalt shingles and remove 3 chimneys on a single-family dwelling located at 720 Northwest 2nd Avenue. This building is a contributing structure to the University Heights Historic District North. And I believe Mrs. Lofsky is on the call, I believe with her roofer, so let me move her over.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to share my screen to make my presentation.
Okay.
Can you, oops, what happened?
Here we go.
Okay, can you see that?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the proposal here is to re-roof a single-family dwelling with a shingle roof from metal and remove chimneys. And the property is located at 720 Northwest 2nd Avenue. The applicant is proposing to remove the existing metal roof system with Atlas fiberglass reinforced asphalt shingles. Also part of the project is the removal of 2 brick chimney stacks and 1 metal chimney stack. The chimney stacks above the roof line would be removed, but the chimney sections below the roof line would remain. This dwelling was built circa 1914 and is a contributing structure in the University Heights Historic District North. The map here indicates the property highlighted in yellow. Uh, you see, this is Northwest 6th Street to the east. This is that little circular street pattern that we've seen before, mostly with some re-roofs. This is the old 706 restaurant to the south here on the corner of 7th Street and University Avenue. The zoning in this area is urban 6, and the property is about 0.11 acres in land area. So here's a picture of the property. Again, a contributing structure built in 1914. It's a bungalow style house with a screened in front porch. Here's another view from the street. You see the notification sign that was placed there to advertise this meeting. So here's the elevation, the east side elevation that shows the 3 chimneys. All 3 are on this one side of the house. See the short brick chimney above the roof line, then the metal stack, then the larger or longer chimney stack in the back. Now you notice that it's just the brick chimneys that have actual chimney structures below the roof line. Those would remain. It would be everything above the roof line that's proposed to be removed. So the idea is to replace the existing sheet metal roofing system with Atlas fiberglass reinforced asphalt shingles, removal of the 3 chimney stacks above the roof line. The property owners indicate that the chimneys no longer work and they are not attached to any working interior applications or appliances. The chimney stacks would be removed above the roof line so that the roof would have a uniform surface for the re-roof process and reduce areas of leakage. These are some interior pictures of the chimneys. The first one here on the left is an old kitchen vent. Then you see the living room fireplace, which has been bricked up, which you can get a closer detail of that on the right. And there's also a living room vent located here just above the light bulb. So the asphalt shingles are a common style of roof material that's evident in the neighborhood and throughout the city. In noting the mix of roof types in this section of University Heights North, the proposed shingles are compatible with the house and the neighborhood. Now, the removal of the existing chimneys is generally discouraged in the historic preservation guidelines. However, there are no interior appliances or applications that are associated with the chimneys, and the applicants are concerned about the re-roof and plugging the leaks around the chimneys if they were to remain. Apparently, leaking is an issue currently in the house. So with that, staff recommends approval of the re-roof proposed in petition HP-20-61 and recommend that the board hear the request to remove the chimney stacks as proposed in the application. I'll be happy to answer any questions, but the property owner and the roofer, I believe, are in the meeting and are available to present or answer questions as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Simmons. All right. Mr. Simmons, could you back it up to we'll have a photograph of the front that shows the chimneys? That's good. Okay. Any board comment right off the bat?
Well, you know me, I'm always ready to comment. I would not be opposed to the removal of the metal chimney structure because I don't think that that's a historically significant
Right.
feature of the house. But as far as removing the brick chimneys above the roof line, I would be absolutely opposed to that.
Okay.
I think, you know, with flashing and a new roof, there should be no issue.
Okay. Other board comment?
I think it may very well be the case that these were after the fact chimneys to begin with, in as much as they're not integral to the structure. But I mean, all the original flue chimneys and fireplace chimneys that I'm immediately familiar with were part of the building, the original building and inboard. All of the ones that are surface mounted, as you see here, were after the fact. Either the structure was moved there and then the chimneys applied, or it was built and they were later. My problem would be in just knocking off the top and leaving the bottom. Frankly, that would look goofy. I would say that would be an unsettling appearance and not consistent with the guidelines. I mean, either you have a chimney or not. Addressing the how to retain them, if they had crickets on the high side, which is to say a gable element behind the chimney, that would vastly reduce the likelihood of the stress on flashing on the high side. So I'd be for either taking them off entirely or flashing them appropriately. I do agree with Liz, the metal item ought to go.
Okay.
So I'm familiar, this house I'm familiar with, it actually has some pretty decorative craftsman elements on the interior. It has interior pillars between the living room and the dining room. I think it was a pretty good example of a craftsman style. I can think of several homes where the fireplaces were on the exterior of the house for this particular style of home. I certainly think they are a defining characteristic in the guidelines, clearly state that removing them is not advised, and it's not in keeping with the guidelines. I agree, the metal one I think could go, but with proper flashing around those chimneys and ceiling, I can't see where they would be more problematic in any way. And actually, you know, they're a nice architectural feature of the home. I think that it's very likely that both of those were there, especially with the one in the back is located in the kitchen, which is where you would typically see those. And then the fireplace would have, again, this was a house that was built with some interesting features. I think even looking at on the corner, you can see what's painted green, the sort of pillar on the front porch there looks very similar to the chimney in the rear. And so I think it's consistent with the home. I'd like to see them stay.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, well, my thoughts on it is, judging from the interior view of it, it does look like it's original. The front one in the living room is original to the house. And the one in the kitchen was nothing more than a service flue for the stove. And it looks like it may have been extended up a little bit, just because of the height. But the metal one definitely is an after effect. But the guidelines does recommend leaving them in place unless they are structurally unsound, which I don't really see to be the case here. Any further thoughts from anybody?
Actually, it would appear at a glance that the fireplace associated chimney does not meet what was then or now code requirements for the difference between the height, the top of the opening and the nearest 10 feet.
Yeah, it looks to be that it's been shortened at some point, probably.
Right.
But it's not a working fireplace anyway on the interior. So at this
Right.
point, it's just a decorative element of the home.
Okay, would the owner or roofer like to add anything?
I'd like to say something.
Sure.
It's Tommy Lee, AGM Roofing. I think what I'm seeing is the interior fireplace is connected to the chimney closest to the road. Looks like the one in the back may have been an afterthought because it's just like maybe to an old furnace or just a hole in the wall that's capped off.
Mhm.
I don't see. I mean, I understand that maybe the one was original with the fireplace built inside, but the one in the back, it's, you know, if you get a hurricane, that'd be one of the first things that could blow off in a fireplace that high. Of course, none of them's being used, so I don't think there's a code issue. But if we was to remove that one and we remove the bricks on the side of the house, would that be acceptable?
Well, I can think of instances in the past where we'd allowed homeowners to remove the just flue pipe only in the back of the house when it wasn't attached to any kind of fireplace or feature. But generally not one that's actually attached to a fireplace. And that's just
So the
kind
one
of-
in the front is attached to a fireplace, but the one in the back doesn't have a fireplace. It just has a hole in the wall where maybe a furnace or something would have vented out into it.
Yeah. And
So
that
the homeowners would rather do that and open up that whole back wall and remove all that brick and have to reframe the back corner of the house rather than just leave it?
No, ma'am, there's siding behind the fireplace or behind the rocks that go down the side of the house. It's not attached to the house. I mean,
Okay.
it's close to it.
that may be an indication it was an addition, as Bill suggested.
Well,
This is Florence Solovsky. I just, wanted to, comment that when we were looking at re-roofing, and the roof is over 100 years old. It's original to the home. And, I think it's wonderful that it's lasted as long as it has. But at this point, we've submitted the application since July. And for whatever reason, we're into October. We've had problems with the roof. We put in new HVAC, new blown-in insulation because the house was just not able to keep the house cool during the summer. We were very, very uncomfortable. And, the chimneys, initially when we were looking at this project was just to look at the structural integrity of the roof not having any leaks. But, now that we are more informed with the historical area, we're open to keeping historical elements. However, the front fireplace, I could see us, keeping that in place. The metal fixture in the middle, I definitely would like to see that go away. And it sounds like we have some sort of consensus that it's not a historical element. The rear, as much as I like to keep a lot of character, if it's not usable, I could go either way with that portion. But I would definitely like consideration just because, we've waited a long time to get a roof and no insurance company wants to insure us because of the age of the roof. So we definitely want to, hear your expertise and, make sure that we keep in line with the historical integrity of the neighborhood, but also, want to move forward with the re-roof.
Okay, great. Okay. Any further board comment?
Yeah, I'm gonna comment further. What I've heard up to this point tells me, yes, that these were probably both built after the house was either built or moved there. The flue chimney in the back, I agree with the roofer, is could in an exceptionally high wind succumb. However, I do not agree with knocking off the top and leaving the bottom. Same line of thinking on the fireplace. I think that if you get into, I would say, you really don't want to remove the lower portion there. That gets into a whole lot of stuff that they probably don't want to get into. I would take the trouble to flash appropriately the original fire or that fireplace chimney location, ditch the metal, and completely remove the flue chimney.
Okay. I would agree with that too. Okay.
So to remove the flue chimney in the back, but leave the chimney in the front,
Yeah.
and then remove the metal chimney?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have an objection to that.
Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts? Okay. Do we have any public comment?
No, sir.
Thank you.
I have a thought on the definitely the one in the middle is, the metal should go. I would like to see the one in the front stay as well. The one in the back, though, you're saying that the wood goes underneath of that?
Just
Behind
seems
it.
surprising to me.
You can actually see in the photograph there, it looks like there's a space between the brick and the wood.
Mm-hmm.
Which generally means it was done after the fact.
I just can't help but wonder though, in the back, I mean, how that could even be causing, if it's not connected to the house, how that could be causing, because it's outside of the main structure of the house. It just seems, simpler to leave it in place. I mean, just the cost to demo and all of that. I think that likelihood of that chimney coming down by a wind is less likely than the fact that apparent water oak back there will probably land on the house. I mean, that's just from what I can see in the photo, at least. I just think money well spent might be to trim that water oak and get it off that chimney.
The water oak is gone.
Oh, good. Well done.
It was dead.
Yeah.
And we did have the arborist from the city and, going down the permitting process. So they gave us the authority to go ahead and take down the tree. There was a big hole.
Yeah. I just, I looking at it just from a perspective of the work involved, it almost just seems easier to leave that back one in place. That, I have mixed feelings. I'm not sure how I feel about that chimney going. I think it may very well have been original as well. Just from, again, looking at the front of the house. I mean, but it's not useful. I mean, do you have a strong opinion of it going or staying, the back one?
You're talking to us?
Mm-hmm.
At this point, looking at the guidelines for chimneys, I don't know when that chimney was put in or if it was put in originally for the wood stove in the back. If I guess with approval to re-roof, removing the metal chimney, at this point, we can just leave both chimneys and just flash around them. I think that's fine.
Okay.
It wasn't original. It was put in there quite a while ago by the way it's closed up. Those stoves that would have been used, unless it was obviously a wood stove, would have been way before like the like at least 40s or before.
But it's old.
What,
There's no-
is there a kitchen there? What's in that area?
That is the
The
kitchen.
kitchen, there's probably, I'm assuming it's a wood stove. I could be wrong. Could be.
Which in many ways tells the history of the house. So I mean, even though you're losing it, I mean, I think it does tell a story. And I think that's what's interesting about the historic houses is that's a part of its story. So, I mean, I'd like to see both of those stay. I mean, I have no problem with the metal roof going. You know, obviously it has been very rainy. Would also like to see the roof get on as quickly as possible. But, you know, my preference would be to see the 2 brick chimneys stay and then the shingle.
And the wind hasn't taken it down yet, so it's pretty stable.
And I guess if the homeowners are open to that, then I would be more inclined to want to keep both of them as well.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Somebody?
Somebody?
You gotta find the paperwork.
Michelle?
I don't have the H. What's the number?
2061.
HP 2061.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to approve the architectural shingle replacing the metal, the removal of the metal chimney in the center of the house, and remaining with leaving the 2 brick chimneys in place.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion is second, Mr. Simmons.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. By the way,
I'm sorry, Jason, one more thing. I'm so sorry, you guys, to jump in here. Do we know what color the new roof's going to be?
Yes, it's a gray color.
Okay.
It's, here, let me,
Color's pristine oyster,
yes.
a
that-
light gray.
Say, yeah.
Yeah, it's not highly visible here anyway.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
okay, and there are asphalt shingles.
Okay.
Yep.
So Elizabeth, let's see. Danielle Massey,
Aye.
Michelle Hazen,
Aye.
Elizabeth Hausauer,
Aye.
Bill Warner,
Aye.
Jay Reeves.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good luck with the roof. It's going to look really nice.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for all of your time and attention.
Well, I do recommend you put a cricket behind on the high side of the chimneys. Otherwise, you just
Yeah.
sooner, you'll have failure. So
Okay.
that's my thought.
Thank you. Appreciate your patience.
Thank you.
Okay, does that bring us to public comment next?
Yes, so I have 2 gentlemen that wish to address the board, so I'm going to add them or to move them over as panelists. So there's a James Witten and an Anthony Ackrell.
Mm-hmm.
Jason, can you stop sharing your screen, please? There we go. And I don't know if you remember, Mr. Ackrell was an applicant for a re-roof at I believe at the last board meeting. The request was to replace, I believe, asphalt shingle roof with a metal 5V crimp roof. And so I believe he wanted to, I believe Mr. Witten was the applicant and Mr. Ackrell is the property owner. Let me see if they can unmute.
Yep, I'm here.
And there's some echo on your end. Oh. No.
How about muting them?
God.
This is Anthony Ackrell. Can you hear me?
No.
Yeah, we got a problem.
Can I be heard? I don't know if I'm on or not.
You are now. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we had him on both platforms. That's why there was the echo. We just fixed it for you.
Gotcha.
Go ahead, Mr. Ackle.
Joining conference now. You have been muted. To unmute yourself, press star key twice.
Mr. Ackle, you calling into that number is actually what's causing the echo. You can just continue on Zoom. Are you there, sir? I show him still on Zoom. Hopefully you can. Okay, let's do this. I mean, if you can kick him off, there we go.
Okay, okay, well, there we go.
Okay, I believe we're going to link him. The echo is when he's both on Zoom and our platform. He's just called into our platform. What we're going to attempt to do is get him to talk through our platform. Give us 1 second. Okay, Mr. Ackrell,
That's not working.
I feel like I'm at a
Okay.
It's kind of fun.
Try it again, Bethany or Mr. Ackrell, if you're on the public comment line.
Can you hear me? 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 You hear me?
Just kill the call.
I can't explain that one. He was on Zoom, and when he's on Zoom and the public comment line, it does echo like that. But then I got him off Zoom, and now it's still doing it. Let us try and get in contact with him, and I guess take the other caller.
So I'm here and I am ready. However, Mr. Ackrell did want to speak to you first. Could we give him maybe another minute or two, see if he can rejoin Zoom and let him speak prior to me, if possible?
Okay.
Yeah, if we can get him back on Zoom and just have him not call our line as well, it should work.
I'm attempting to troubleshoot with him.
Could we go on to something else here while we're waiting?
That's a whole nother big topic to start the rental housing ordinance. We
Okay.
probably should wait. Just give them a few more minutes.
Okay, I'm going to see if he can speak through me. Anthony, go ahead and give it a try.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfectly well? Well enough?
Yeah.
Well enough.
Very good.
Okay. I was not at the last meeting, obviously, when my application was there. I couldn't, and James represented me. I just had a few comments I wanted to make about your decision to reject my 5D roof for my home on 3rd Avenue. You said I could have, if I want metal, I have to go with standing seam or go with shingles again, which is what's on the house. But the problem I'm having with is you're telling me I either have to choose the most expensive roof there is or the cheapest, most environmentally unsound product out there. And I'm not asking you to make an exception for me. I'm asking that I think you should reconsider your interpretation of the guidelines. We have new times and new problems. We have full landfills and climate change and heating. And I'm going to have to buy asphalt-based product, tear off the old one, throw it in the landfill, and 20 years from now, repeat that because insurance companies won't insure a roof more than 20 years old. So in my lifetime, I'd have to buy 2 shingle roofs, take it to the landfill. We're going to have more hurricanes, hotter temperatures, and a metal roof, far more durable and better at cooling. I think what you should consider is you should be encouraging people to switch to metal from shingles, from the asphalt product rather. I went through the neighborhood, street by street, house by house, and I counted how many houses had metal panel roofs, not the metal shingles, because those are the only original metal roofs in the neighborhood. And between the duck pond and the historic Southeast District bed and breakfast area, there's 49 homes with metal panel roofs. Only 15 of them are standing seam, yet there's 25 that are 5D and 9 that are raised rib. And some of the 5D are very prominent, beautiful 2-story homes, like on 7th Street, just around the corner from me. Now, I understand that perhaps those homes put the 5D roof on without a permit. But if you're going to be choosing a metal roof, and I think you should be encouraging people to go with metal, I think you should go with the one that is already the dominant roof by far in the historic district, that being 5D. I understand what you're saying, that it was not considered a roof for a home. It was only for secondary structures. And you said there were none in this neighborhood, but there is one, 725 Northeast 4th Avenue. It's the original 5D metal roof. Clearly it's original. It's ancient and rusty. And it's a street front home, a bungalow, like 1930s, set back a little from the road, but you can plainly see it from the street. So there is a historical precedent for it being used on a home in this neighborhood, unlike, as what James pointed out to you last week, unlike standing seam, which nobody can say, look, there's one original to the neighborhood. I really am hoping that you will reconsider this, the rationale behind the choice of the standing seam. I mean, it is so similar in appearance to 5D, vertical panels with spacing and a rib down the middle. I think by and large, 9 out of 10 people wouldn't know the difference. They just see a metal roof. And the irony of this is you are approving new homes in the neighborhood and saying they must look like an old home and must look like the early 20th century structure. But if it's a new home looking like an old home, you're allowed to put a 5D metal roof on it. So this is just a philosophical point, but if my home is blown away by a hurricane right now and I have to rebuild from scratch, ground up, it will no longer be a contributing structure to the neighborhood. Even if I build it to look exactly the way it does right now, in every manner, I would be allowed to have a 5D metal roof on it. So it seems a little bit contradictory to say that the appearance of it is not consistent with the neighborhood when you're allowing people to build old-looking new homes and put it on there. I really think, I'm hoping that you will reconsider how you interpret this, and not just for me, but for everybody, and for environmental concerns as well, which I feel strongly about. I just don't want to have to buy 2 roofs in my house, my lifetime of asphalt, and have them be blowing off in a hurricane 20 years from now when I'm an 80-year-old man and I can't do anything about it. That's not your problem, but it's something I anticipate. I'm not moving. I'm not selling my property. You know, I have this compound here I'm making. So I wish I was there to have said this last week, but unfortunately I couldn't be.
Okay. Is there any board comment or question?
Yeah, I have a question. I don't remember approving any primary structure in the Northeast Historic District for 5V crimp.
I have a map showing all of the locations of every 5V roof in the Northeast District that I can show you right now. I'll go
I
ahead
can
and-
tell you which one it is. It's on Northeast 6th Street, 6th Avenue, like 600 blocks of Northeast 6th Avenue. There was an old, very old little frame house there that people bought it, tore it down, built almost a replica of it, and expanded it, and has 5V. I assumed it was permitted structure. I assumed they had to go through you. Maybe they didn't. And also on Northeast 2nd Street, just north of 10th Avenue, that big 2-story White House on the east side of the road. I think the address is 10,004 or something. Brand new structure, very tall, big white columns, looks quite in keeping with historic structures. It has 5V. And again, maybe they didn't go through the process. I assume because it was a new structure being permitted that they would have to. But my whole point is, it has become ubiquitous. It has become the dominant metal roof in the neighborhood, regardless of what you're saying it once was used as. I just think that that's a very valid consideration going forward, and most importantly, in allowing people to have an affordable metal roof. Otherwise, we're going to keep going down the road of petroleum products, and not many people can afford a standing seam roof. It's going to cost me $5,000 extra if I want to go for that.
So this map illustrates all the standing seam roofs in the Northeast District. The red icon would be Anthony Ackrell's house, and the yellow icon would illustrate what we believe to be an original 5V crimp roof in the Northeast District. And we have pictures of all these homes if we need to send an email packet or whatever it may be.
You said there's a standing seam or there's a 5V crimp?
These are all 5V crimp in the Northeast District. And this yellow icon, we believe is an original 5V crimp from the 1930s.
Is that the house on the corner or the second house in?
That is 725 Northeast 4th Avenue.
It's in the middle of the block, next to that long, expansive house on the corner.
And I would like to point out that the standing seam you're approving is not standing seam. It is a snap lock panel that came about within the last 20 years. It is a new material. It did not exist prior to the early 2000s. It does not have a standing seam. There is no seam in the actual roof itself. And I have the architectural layout here. So your standing seam would have a rolled seam that is seamed together. It's impervious to water penetration. What you're approving is a snap lock system. So I can get this to pull up. That is essentially a rib panel. It does not have any sort of seam to it. So it has really no historical precedence. And this is everything that's in it that's been approved in duck pond is this rib panel that is not a seamed panel. So you can see there's a clear difference in the actual metal style itself.
Excuse me. I think also last month, I think it was Michelle Hazen said that the reason standing seam was approved was because it was it more closely resembled the metal shingles roofs. But James said it doesn't, and I tend to agree. The shingle roof pattern of metal shingles is horizontal lines, while the standing seam is and 5V are both vertical, drastically different.
And those metal shingles were embossed or stamped, and they are stair-stepped or staggered, and it's completely different design.
Is it in the guidelines that that the 5V crimp is not allowed?
No.
The Interior Department's guidelines approve 5V because 5V has been around since the 1850s. 5V, it started off as 3V crimp in, I think, Britain, which I went over last time, and they brought it over to America, turned it into 5V because it was more rigid. And the reason you saw it on more modest homes is because it reduced the cost of lumber by about 75% for the roof deck of the home, because they were able to utilize a V-stick and not actually sheathe the actual roof deck itself. So it was highly cost effective, which is why you saw it on modest homes and not the more luxurious homes. You know, the luxurious homes, they had the money to get the additional timber to actually put down a roof deck itself. You know, the duck pond being the intellectual and socialite and the affluent neighborhood in Gainesville during this time, had they known about global warming and energy efficiency, I would dare say that they would have migrated toward a metal 5V crimp roofing. Unfortunately, the science was just not available to them at this time. But, you know, it was an intellectual hub. You had several University of Florida presidents residing in the area, and, you know, it's a very affluent neighborhood, and they would have wanted the best. And had they known the things that we know today, I do feel as if they would have went that direction.
I guess this argument predates me coming on the board, so I don't have any historical perspective with other decisions made.
Same.
But personally, I tend to agree. And if there are other homes in the duck pond that, as they're showing us, already have the 5V crimp style, I don't have a problem with it. I just put it on my house in New Hampshire, you know, and there's a lot of different types of the metal roof, and economics are a consideration. But I bow to people who know more than I, but that would be my feeling.
And if I may recommend that if you're concerned about the aesthetics of the exposed fasteners, you could put in the criteria to make sure it's installed as it was historically in the high rib, which allows the fasteners to line up with the vertical seams, which is far more aesthetically pleasing. And that is what was traditionally done. Not only is that historically correct, but it's far superior in terms of waterproofing.
Mm-hmm.
What was that term again? High rib?
Yes.
So that can be a request that, and so that's where the fasteners are not visible, is that correct?
It puts the fasteners in line with the vertical seam. So therefore they're not as noticeable, and they are above the flow of water. And traditionally, historically, 5V was fastened with a nail in the high rib of the panel so that it would not leak. And somehow, some way, the building code got away from that, and they now say, well, put it in the flat, which we never truly understood, and we still do not do it that way. But that could be a caveat to installing it in the historical district to make sure that you follow the original installation guidelines that made it such a superior product.
And so that is something that can be just done on request then,
we had to get engineering for it about 6 or 7 years ago. We paid for it, had on-site engineers, and since then, every metal manufacturer has now offered that installation method. It was not ubiquitous 5 or 6 years ago until we pushed for the engineering from Gulf Coast Metal and Tri-County Metal. And once we got both of them on board, just about every other metal manufacturer in the area now offers that engineering. We got hit by a city inspector, and we had to go through the whole engineering process and get everything approved.
Do we have any photos from street level of Anthony's house?
I can pull one up, I'm sure. 1717 Northeast 3rd.
Actually, from the street, if you're standing on the street, you can barely see the roof because it's a high roof and very low pitch. You can see it, but only if you step into the median or all the way across the street. Yes, then you can see it. And from that distance, I would say 99 out of 100 people aren't going to see the difference between standing seam or 5B, or you will not see fasteners no matter where they are. It just becomes a flat metal roof with lines on it.
And just keep in mind that this picture was taken from the top of a vehicle. So, they probably have a 4 or 5 foot height advantage on somebody walking down the street or driving inside their car.
That's where I'm going with this. As I recall, even in an SUV at eye level, almost very little except the fascia is visible.
Mm-hmm.
Let me start by saying I am completely opposed to generally approving 5E crimp on primary structures. I think that we may wish to consider in this case the unique condition that as a person in a normal motor vehicle or pedestrian was passing by, the whatever was on the roof would be very hard to tell whether it was shingle or metal or anything else. So as I'm looking at the photo before us and realizing that camera was probably at least 7 feet above street level, if not more, that the amount of visible roof there would be very, very little. Let me also say I cannot remember any approval of a 5E crimp on primary structure on new construction being approved. Certainly in the 10 or 12 years I've been on the board. But I think we may have a situation before us here where there so little of the roof is visible, if any, by a pedestrian or passerby, that it is a unique condition and worthy of an exception.
I mean, I think he brings up an interesting point that I think they both do. I think it's an interesting point in the sense that and maybe not in all applications is it appropriate, but in a situation where a metal roof can be appropriate, with a lower roof line or something to that effect. Yeah, especially like the idea of this high rib, that we could designate that where we're not seeing the fasteners. Again, I don't know if I would be able to tell the difference in the two, between a standing seam and the fasteners being on what he's calling the high rib. And I think I hear the point that we do have a neighborhood that is, concerned about energy efficiency. And if this is pricing them out, what I'm trying to figure out is, the difference in, lifespans between a standing seam roof and a 5V crimp roof. Perhaps that can be expanded on a little bit.
I'm not quite sure if there is a difference in lifespan between the two. The metal will degrade at the same rate. The downside to the 5V crimp is expansion and contraction of the fasteners that tend to back out. However, if your 5V crimp is properly maintained, your fasteners are inspected every 15 or so years, there is no reason a 5V crimp would last any different lifespan than a standing seam roof. There are many historical houses around the state of Florida that have 5V crimps that have been up there for 80 or more years. Of course, as the same goes for standing seam. They've been up there a very long time. And really the only downside is the exposed fastener. But with the placement in the high rib, it's unlikely that fastener will fail, even if it is to back out, because a lot of these original 5V roofs that we see that have been up there for 80 years are attached with a nail, a lead head nail with a rubber washer. The screws used nowadays have a neoprene washer that doesn't degrade, and it's a screw versus a nail. So it's far more unlikely to back out than your nail.
Yeah.
And even if it does, you still don't have water flowing over it. So the only real moisture it's going to see is a direct raindrop. So as far as longevity goes, I would say they're probably synonymous. The downside is 5V is going to be higher maintenance.
It's the same gauge metal.
Correct. Same gauge metal. The metal is manufactured in the same place. It's all galvalume. The only difference will be one will be higher maintenance.
And what color are you thinking?
Galvalume.
Just galvalume, standard, right? Which over time, within a couple of years, it gets a wonderful dull patina on it, which I actually think looks nice. When they're new and shiny, it's not as attractive as after they get aged a little.
Yeah, I want to add to my earlier comments. If this was not a very low pitch second floor roof, and the roof was say a 7 to 9 and 12, I would absolutely not be moving to approve this. But I think we do have a unique condition here. It's a relatively unusually low pitch on a 2-story. And I think for that reason, it may qualify as a unique condition. The fact that there are 100 million 5V crimp roofs all over the country has nothing to do with what we're talking about. So it is what, in terms of conspicuous roof material, 5V is inappropriate to a primary structure in the duck pond. This is a unique condition.
And can I ask, I'm with Liz, and this has been the mandate since before I was on the board. Just a little bit of the history of that. Perhaps Bill or Jay can expand on that.
Yeah, let me address it, because the board did take that up at one point, and it was back when Dee Hendricks was here, and we kind of lost it because it never really made it into the guidelines. And the situation we talked about as a group was that it could be appropriate for the more simpler lower pitched roofs, the bungalow style structures, the cottages, things like that, but that it was inappropriate for the higher styled Victorians and buildings that had unique architecture because it was a simpler, more economical roof. And that's kind of how we made the distinction. That's probably how some of the buildings made it into the Duck Pond and other neighborhoods back then. It's just once we lost the staff person, we kind of lost consistency with that. And we haven't really addressed it, but we need to because it really does need to be in the guidelines. And I would agree with Bill's statement that this roof is very shallow. It's not very apparent from the street. And this is not what I would call a high styled house either. It's a big house, but it just doesn't have any distinctive period architecture to it, other than we know it's colonial revival. But the roof is not going to be really apparent from the street. So I think this one is a unique condition.
So are we saying that if the homeowner were to come back to us to ask for approval for the 5B crimp in the Galvalume color, we would approve it?
Well, if we take a vote, we'll find out.
It's not before the board, I don't think, is it?
Right.
How would that work? Do they need to come back or can we give them approval now?
So again, this is just under public comment and the item is not on the agenda. I mean, we could put it, place it again under old business at the next meeting and the board could take action at that time, or the board, you know, if the board felt comfortable with the staff approving it with, you know, whatever conditions that have been discussed. I mean, we could do that, but again, that's really up to the board.
I would suggest we take a vote to send this to staff. Staff is well aware of our the thoughts here and on fastening, generally speaking, and take a vote to send it for staff approval.
So we're asking to send it for staff approval with the caveat that it be the high rib fasteners?
Basically.
Yes. So there would be no interpretation on staff's part of what we're recommending.
Correct.
Correct.
I would vote for that.
Well, do we need a motion is the question.
Well, I don't know whether we can take a motion or take a vote or I'm not sure what, since it's just for public.
It's not an advertised item, yes.
Correct.
Wasn't this a continuance didn't we do a continuance for this?
No, we disapproved it.
Yeah, so it was approved with staff recommendation. The staff recommendation was to go with the standing seam metal. And then also, I believe the board also added if they wanted to do the shingle, then they could do shingle. But there was no continuance of this item.
To be proper here, we actually need to bring it back up again as old business.
Okay.
Okay. But Mr. Whitten, you understand what we're asking for? You guys are clear? So when you come back, it will be worded in that way, the request?
Absolutely. I wouldn't dream of installing a metal roof with fasteners anywhere but the high rib. I think it would be silly to do anything otherwise.
Okay.
All right. You know where you're headed.
I'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Anthony Ackrell again. I want to tell you how much I really appreciate your willingness to reconsider and open-mindedness and listening to this bringing back of it. It really means a lot to me, and I meant to say this right from the start, but I have the absolute full respect for the board and what you're doing, and I believe in it, and I think it's important. And this came up because I was not willing to just slap one up there. I could have found a roofer who would have done it without a permit, and then it would be done. But I wanted to go through the right channels, and so I'm very pleased that you are willing to reconsider this. I really means a lot to me.
Well, you're welcome.
Thank you.
We would have hated to make you rip off a roof.
Yeah. Well, Anthony,
I think it's a very good point, though. I appreciate all the information that was brought to us because I think it's a lot of good information to think about as a board. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony, you're an absolute asset to our community.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you next month.
Yep. The other point I would bring up is when the board discussed this last time, it was because there was, it was after the hurricanes and there was a major push by insurance companies to push everybody into metal roofs. And that's what brought the topic up, because all of a sudden we were getting a flood of people wanting to put metal roofs on historic houses that never had metal roofs. And the situation is, how do we address that? And we did discuss at the time that maybe, in fact, it's not fair to force everybody to put the most expensive roof on every single house, that we would try to distinguish it on a case-by-case basis. But of course, without having that in the guidelines and without really taking a careful look at each house, it's kind of a difficult thing to do.
And
I think that sounds like a good approach, though. It sounds like you were on the right track in terms of approach. So,
well, I do think this needs to be discussed again, and I do think it needs to be addressed in the guidelines. And it needs to be really qualified, so the burden is not on all of us to figure out where's the level of judgment.
Right.
Because it needs to be clarified, and for those that follow us.
Yeah. When we're all dead.
Except me.
Later.
Except you.
Bill, you'll be there forever.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that was a good discussion. I'm glad we were able to have some follow-on on that.
We needed to discuss that.
Yeah.
And I will also add that this is extremely helpful to staff because we have been inundated with these requests. So these same types of requests. So.
I just clarify that I don't need to file any additional paperwork to be on the next meeting, that will be taken care of.
Correct. I may request some just additional information regarding the roofing material, just kind of what was discussed there, just so that we have it in the backup.
Okay.
And I'll reach out to you for that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do we have another public comment one, or is that it?
I believe that's all that we had in terms of who had reached out to us previously. So.
Okay. Okay, that brings us back to staff approvals and board business.
Are there any questions about the staff approvals?
No.
No.
I would make one comment, and this sort of goes back to before Sal was hired. The meeting prior to him being hired, we had requested that moving forward on fencing, that fencing requests come to us because there had been interpretations that we didn't feel were appropriate on fencing. Do we want to, now that we don't have Sal, do we want to go back to that edict that we look at the fence requests? What do you guys think?
I'd say if staff has any question whatsoever, it should come to the board.
Yeah, because I don't think you want to bring every single fence to us, because there's a lot of generic fences that we probably don't need to review.
Yeah.
Well, I do think we need to tighten up our guidelines in terms of openness and placement and height, because, well, for one example, one on 7th Street that just popped up, I don't remember having been approved at all. At 101 7th Street, Northeast. The fencing behind the front plane of the house is what we've approved many times before. The fencing in front of the house right up to the curb, I think should have been before us. It fails in terms of openness and height.
Well, maybe they didn't get a permit. Do we need to check that? You said it's 101 7th Street?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the yellow house by the almost to the corner?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a 4-foot high, 75% closed fence right up to the back of the curb.
Yvette, did you guys approve that fence?
I'm trying to pull up
It's 101 Northeast 7th Street.
It was definitely not in the 3 staff approvals. And I don't know if it was in the months before, but it just appeared about 5 or 6 weeks ago.
Doesn't look familiar to me, but I'll have to look it up in our system to see if anything came to us for approval.
Did that house just sell?
Yes, it recently changed hands.
Well, I wonder if the new owners just put a fence up and didn't realize they needed any kind of approvals.
This is the Tomazinski or whatever the hell the name was.
Oh, yeah. That did go up. So that one and the other one on 7th Street too, on the corner of 3rd. I didn't see either one of those.
They had a permit for that. They got a staff approval to replace the existing fence, and I guess they did it in June. We discussed that at, I think, 2 meetings ago.
Yeah, that was a pool enclosure.
Yeah, it didn't go through the board.
No, that's Sal approved that. Sal approved that one. That's where I feel like it can easily spiral out of control. So now what do we do? If the people at 101 7th did not get permission for their fence, what's the next step?
So they would need to file an application for work that has been done without approval by the board.
Okay, so how do they get notified that they need to do that? By code enforcement?
Correct.
Okay, so is that something then that you and Jason take care of, Yvette?
Yes.
Okay, is that something you will take care of then, Yvette?
I can look into it, yes.
If you look and see that they didn't get approval?
Correct.
Okay, all right, so you guys will follow up on that?
Yes.
Perfect. I feel like I'm the fence crazy person.
You are.
Okay.
Fences? Thanks.
That's okay. It's okay.
I'm a rule follower, damn it. Yeah.
Okay. Board business, any? Yep, we got energy efficiency rental units to talk about.
Yeah, that was something that I asked to put on the agenda because I was unclear on how historic properties will be pigeonholed into the new rules in terms of energy efficiency, specifically, for example, windows.
Right.
Now I've read the rule now because Yvette and Jason were good enough to attach it. So that's good because I couldn't find it anywhere. And it seems to imply that it's energy efficiency is comprised of attic insulation and HVAC and or window units. They don't mention windows at all.
Right.
But are we at all uncomfortable with the way those guidelines were written and approved vis-a-vis historic structures? Or do we just need to, take it as it comes, I guess?
I read it through too, and I didn't see anything that looked like it would threaten. I was worried as well about the windows.
Yeah.
But I didn't see anything that they would.
It didn't look as bad to me as I thought it was going to be. It's still a little vague in areas, but that's more a landlord problem.
Yeah.
But it didn't say, window efficiency and that kind of thing. So.
I would think if it doesn't conflict with our historic guidelines, then we probably should leave it alone.
Okay. Okay.
I have a question about that there too. Do we know, has that new program replaced the previous landlord permit?
Yes.
It has.
And it says as of January 21, January.
Right. So that, I mean, because it seems like the costs are somewhat equivalent of what the previous landlord permit was, correct?
No, it's higher.
But slightly, right?
Well, I don't know, $30 a unit, maybe $40 a unit more.
Okay. But it wasn't in addition to, I was sort of pleased to
No.
see that.
But it seems kind of weird that it's January 21 because right now is when you're doing landlord permits. So it's weird that we're all doing them and yet it's changing as of 2021. So I think there's still some things that are maybe a little up in the air, but okay. I agree. I didn't want to like raise alarm bells on something that didn't need to be alarming, but I got worried about windows and what we were going to do about windows in historic structures if they were going to make us have energy efficient windows everywhere.
Yeah, that'd be a can of worms to open.
That would be really bad. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and from what I remember when this went to the commission, there was someone that called in and they did ask a question regarding historic structures. And I believe the response was that there is some language that's worked into this that that does provide for exemptions in those instances. I see here now that there is a section called extraordinary hardships, and I believe it would probably fall under that.
Okay.
Yeah, although that's a little vague too, because then at the bottom line of that section, it says something like financial and something else are not considered a hardship. Well, if financially it's impossible to do something because of the structure of a building. So that's still a little squishy as far as I'm concerned, but it looks like there could be some outs in there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Nothing else, then
hang on, Yvette, did you want to talk about 609?
Yeah, so I wanted to briefly just talk about that. I was able to reach out to the owner. Well, it was more so the owner's father on that property. I don't know if you remember, I think we talked about that project maybe at the August meeting when the addition and garage, new garage structure came in on that street. And so this is the house that's maybe two doors down or 3 doors down from that project. It was one that I believe the board had approved back in 2017, and they removed a lot of this, all of the siding, original siding. I believe there was an approval to build an accessory structure on the side as well, if I remember correctly. And so I did send an email to them. They had applied, I believe, for a new roof. So they did put a new roof on the structure. It was a white metal roof. Which I don't recall seeing anything in what was in the approval that the board provided that said anything in regards to the color of the roof. It was another one of those where they weren't sure if they were going to do a metal roof or a shingle roof. And so, it was kind of left up for staff, I guess, to decide at that time. And they came in again with the metal and it was white. So I know that we had had some discussion about amending the application so that we can at least have that information. I know we don't typically ask, but I think when it's a metal roof, I feel like there sometimes is some concern if someone wants to do a red metal roof or a green metal roof. I mean, we don't see it often, but I'd hate for us to be kind of blindsided kind of at the last minute by that. And we don't really have anything in the code that says yay or nay or anything in the guidelines. So that's one part. Another part was that I let them know that their actual approval was expired. It's only good for a year. So I told them they needed to come back to the board because I felt that there was some clarification that was needed in terms of what was approved back then and kind of what changes have occurred since then. So they should be submitting a new application. I believe the board had also approved the historic tax exemption for that, I guess the part 1. And so I did mention, I was a little concerned about a lot of the siding being removed and a lot of the original components of the house being removed, and that could impact that. So I just wanted to let the board know ahead of time that we may be seeing that maybe at the next meeting.
But they've hired a new general contractor?
Well, so my understanding, so the owner, I believe lives elsewhere. It was the father that I spoke with. So I think him and the son will be working as the general contractors is what I've been told. So I believe I don't remember the name of the original contractor for when it was approved back in 17.
It was Atlantic Design Build.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's correct.
So they're going to do owner builder on the house?
I believe so, yes.
All right. So the fact that they, that one of the other issues, you guys, and I'm intimately familiar with the house because it's 2 doors down from me, and I know Danielle walks by it all the time too, and everybody knows what house it is. But one of the other things that they did is they took both the chimneys down on the house. And if you look at the original renderings, which were given to the board for approval originally, the chimneys were on the roof of the house. If you looked at the floor plan, you realize there were no fireplaces inside, but the chimneys were drawn on the elevations. They then came back in several months later, if I'm correct, Yvette, and Yvette could correct me if I'm wrong, to change the pitch on the back porch, but did not ask anything about taking down the chimneys. And at that point, the new elevations they submitted did not show the chimneys. But they never came back to staff, board, or anyone about taking the chimneys off that house.
The same thing about the front porch. They removed it completely, and that wasn't part of what we approved.
Yeah. They literally have stripped there's not a door, there's not a board, there is not one single thing in that house that's original other than the siding up at the gable window. And the gable window is not even original. That's the only portion of that house that retains anything that's original. Every single thing was stripped out of that house. So I guess on my rant, my question is, what do we do when they, I mean, not having been in this position before, when they come back to us, and for example, one of the original things that was approved were solar panels. Well, now they put a white roof on the house.
Mm-hmm.
So do we just—
Did they put the white roof on?
Yeah, they put the white roof on. Yeah, they got permission yes, it fell through the cracks, I believe.
Wait, they haven't expired. I'm not clear. So
They got a new roofing permit because they were permitted based on the fact that they had a permit before. The building department did not flag it as a historic home, and they allowed the permit for the new roof to go on to be approved. That's correct, Yvette, right?
So I believe they utilized the old certificate of appropriateness to pull the permit for the metal roof.
So even though it was expired.
Correct.
So apparently, Yvette told me that there's a new system that's coming online that will flag any house that's in an historic district. So these kinds of things will not happen going forward.
But now do we have a white metal roof that we just have to look at now?
Mm-hmm.
No, it'll be gray and black in no time.
Yeah, right.
I mean, but
Freaked.
so okay, yeah, because I think this conversation is like multifold. I mean, we've got them doing things we've got the ad valorem tax exemption, which they're probably not eligible anymore since they have not kept anything historic. So that seems pretty clear. We've got an old thing they need to come back to us. But at this point, I mean, what do we do if people just start stripping their houses? I mean, the chimneys are gone. I mean,
Everything will be put back. We have to maintain it as close to the original as possible because
I would agree. They can frame and they can use
a contributing structure to the neighborhood, but not into itself.
So at this point, then we can say we need the chimneys back.
Yep.
We need the porch returned to as close.
The porch, I would say yes. The chimneys are going to be a hard one if they're not attached to anything on the interior.
Why can't they frame and use a brick veneer that makes it look like it's all the way through? and then reflash the roof. I
That's
don't know.
Never gonna look.
Well, I mean, you know, the brick veneer is real brick. It's just cut an inch thick. They could frame, they could put a cap on it. I don't know, but the chimneys just fry my bacon. The fact that those chimneys came down. I mean, it just.
Well, the board does have the ability to pursue that, but it's going to be highly unpopular and it'll probably end up before the commission.
You mean to make them put the chimneys back?
Probably, but the thing is, there's more to hold out for there at this point. You know, going back to plans that were approved and demanding compliance.
I think it's going to take some serious bird dogging on the rest of the project to make sure it is built as close to the original drawings. And the stuff that has disappeared that was original, the appearance needs to come back even if it is new materials. It's just, I think the chimneys may be a tough one to sell because they're not going to be attached to fireplaces. So they're just cosmetic at that point.
Yeah. I mean, I think we need to be careful with that because Atlantic Design Builder, they're the same ones that did the house next door to me, and they took her chimney down too. And I'm sure you guys didn't approve that for her remodel.
They are repeat offenders, so that's why they need to be reviewed very carefully and watched very carefully.
Yeah, well, they're the ones doing Sarah and Andy's house 2 doors down on the other side. And that's where some of the concerns that were raised.
So, I mean, I think at some point, though, if we don't have this, put them back up. I mean, because it's a significant cost. So, you know, realistically, I mean, we just had chimneys in front of us today. You know, these people are still watching the meeting tonight. They're going to say, well, look, somebody else tore the chimneys down and they're not going to do anything about it. I mean, I think, you know,
it's a precedent to set to make this not continue to be an issue for us.
Right. I mean, you know, put them back. You took them down without our approval, put them back. And, you know, you
have to be very careful, Michelle, because it can turn into a very negative PR thing. Remember back in 2014, we have to be very careful.
What happened in 2014?
We had the commission after us.
Yeah. I mean, but then again, well, that I think that was an interesting scenario. Anyway, that's a whole nother conversation.
I mean, maybe the comment that I would make and the observation I would make, having only been on the board now for what, 1.5 years, is that when I went back and looked at their application had so many moving parts. I don't know how you guys were able to even sort it all out. And a lot of it was left to chance. And a lot of it was, but if we have to do this, then we'll go do that. And if we have to do this, then we'll do that. I mean, it was very, very open-ended. So maybe we just need to start being tougher in terms, like we were with Elliott, you know, tougher in terms of what does this actually look like? Don't just throw a drawing. We want to know what the trim looks like. We want to know what the shake, you know, hold them to a standard that allows us to make informed decisions.
Well, and I mean, I think something as simple as a checklist of some sort, you know, I mean, something that's very clear. What's your trim? What's your window? Dimensions, materials, roof materials. I mean, because I feel like this is in a narrative format and then we have to, you know,
pick it all out.
And if we're not, if it's a long meeting and we're 4 hours in, I mean, I just know things slip by us. And I mean, I think there should be some sort of a format. You know, are we talking about a fence? Okay, great. What's your level of opaqueness? What's the height? You know, I mean, where it is just consistent every time in an instant, we can take a look and see what we're looking at. Because, you know, all of us are volunteer members here again, making this more complicated for everyone. I mean, by, like I said, a narrative report is not helping us at this point in time. Right. It's just not.
I agree.
I mean, and, you know, I mean, is there a possibility of something like that being put together for us as a board? I mean, I know that would be extremely helpful.
Yvette?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I know
Sal had just updated the application, but I don't think it was simplified enough in terms of kind of what you just said, Michelle, in terms of making it easy for the applicant to provide that information to us so that we can then go through and see, okay, either what's missing or if it's not the proper material or information that they provided, and then that again being provided to the board. So, I mean, I think that's something that definitely we can do. I think that could be an easy fix. I want it to be a quick fix, but yeah, I think that's something definitely we can work on.
I think it's a great idea. You almost just need to dumb it down a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's easier for them to provide us the information, and it's easier for you guys and us to check through it quickly.
Yeah. I mean, I think really simply, I mean, the things that we're really looking at, doors and windows, you know, materials on the roof, you know, heights and, you know, level of fencing. I mean, some of those are the big things. And I feel like we're seeing them time and time again. And then too, having some guidelines that people know they're not going to bring us things. I mean, we've talked about this for years, and we really need those to be put in place so that then too, everyone has an understanding of what the expectations are. You know, even when they're applying, I think it's a little vague at this point. It makes it very difficult for the applicants, and then they are met with resistance because they just don't understand what we're looking for.
And something else I'd bring up is, you know, one of those last meetings when we had a very extensive 3D presentation, and we've had this from big architects with big projects before, it's very easy to get distracted by their presentation and miss all the information.
Right.
And sometimes they're helpful. In that case, it was helpful, but also it is a way to kind of, you know, get our attention.
Mirrors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about also adding to that list? I think it would be great to add setbacks. Is this requiring any you know, alterations to that?
Well, that should be on the site plan. Yeah, but that's part of the list. Yeah.
You know, is it on a, you know, do we have a raised foundation? What is that foundation? I think some of these real basics, because we're going to continue to see infill, which is fabulous. We want to see it. And I think, you know, you see builders like Elliot Larkin coming, and he's trying to, you know, give us what we want. I mean, he was great about coming back, hearing what we said, you know, and coming back and revisiting it. And I think we're seeing that, you know, I think the intentions are good. You know, I think it's just this learning curve, and it would be nice to have some sort of a framework for other builders where they're not having to piece through what we want. You know, it's just sort of a little more accessible for them, of some of the basics.
It's something Elliot could have given the sheet to his architect, and then it would have been pretty clear.
Right.
This is what they're going to be looking for, you know? Yeah. Okay. So Bet, you can just add that to your to-do list, okay?
Yeah. I mean, it was something I was already starting to do. So yeah, but yeah, this is really great information that I think that we really need to know and have. I know just a lot of the applications that have been coming in, I've been trying to get a little bit more involved, and it's kind of explaining and walking people through and kind of holding their hand in terms of the information we need from them. That's going to make it a lot easier. And one of the things I know that I think has been missing a lot is just photos. Like, we need more photos to be attached to the application, so we can get a little bit more context, so the board can get a little bit more context in terms of what's actually needing to be, what they're wanting to make changes to or repairs to, because a lot of times we just don't have that information. Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to get more involved and again, just, you know, request that information, or it's just not going to come to the board until we get it.
Yep.
Good.
Okay.
All right.
And then also, I think we wanted to talk a little bit, I'm trying to hurry up and wrap this up, but just the next meeting date. Sorry, I think I'm probably jumping. I know that you know, initially this meeting was going to be canceled because there were changes in terms of the governor's order. It sounds as if it looks like we're going to be meeting in person starting in November, I believe. But I know that the meeting date for Preservation Board, I believe, is on Election Day. So I don't know how you all feel about that. If you're
I'm working the election, so I can't do that.
Okay, so I know we have another board member that has also told us that, I believe Board Member Hawk also told us that, I believe, as well. So I just wasn't sure if any of the other members, if you're going to be available that day, or if we need to go ahead and try to find another date.
I can't guarantee that I'm available. As you can probably tell, I'm not in town right now.
Oh, okay.
So I'm available, obviously, if Zoom is a possibility, but obviously I won't be able to be counted as a quorum if we're back in person.
Okay.
And I don't know.
Is this a mandate that from the state now that we have to meet in person? Is that what's happening?
So at the end of every month, the governor has been issuing a new order to extend, I guess, the allowance for virtual board meetings. And so the last one that we received, and it's typically on the last day of the month, and it doesn't help with this meeting because this meeting is always at the beginning of the month. So the latest order that we received stated that basically this is the last one. Be prepared to meet come November in person.
Could we maybe push that meeting to the second week of November? I mean, if you have a quorum, that's fine, but.
Yeah, and so that's why I wanted to bring it up now, just so that we can start doing that, to see if there is what dates are available, and when, if we are indeed meeting in person, what room is available or what location is available.
Because if it comes to the end of the month and then they haven't gotten the auditorium ready and then we cancel it at the last minute, wouldn't it be better to just push it now?
Okay.
I don't know.
I agree. I mean, I'd like to see it pushed from that date as well. I mean,
I don't have a date that I could actually tell you that I will absolutely be back. So,
but we'll reach out to you all with that. Try to provide a couple of dates.
Okay.
I may what I'm saying is I may not be able to be available in person next month at all.
Okay.
But I couldn't even tell you an answer to that at this point. Or I might not even know in 2 weeks. So you'll have to probably count me as not being personally available or physically available. But I can be on Zoom if Zoom's allowed and just not counted as a quorum.
Well, you might be able to phone in.
Sorry. That's not the rain. That's my chicken cooking.
I think we did have some other items, but I think we're just going to hold off on those.
It'd be nice not to go 4 hours this time.
Exactly.
That would be nice.
So is there a motion to adjourn, or?
Well, one more. I would like for us to bring up for a relatively brief discussion a communication from the review board to the city commission in regard to accessory dwelling units. The commission has passed it, but I don't think that battle's over. I think it's, as I said in the hearing, something that an awful lot of people aren't even aware of, that will have a very negative effect, especially on historic districts, but throughout the community. So I think we need to make a comment to the city commission in regard to that. I don't think it needs to be lengthy, but I think the commission needs to hear from us.
Do you want to draft that, Bill?
Yeah, I'll draft it.
Okay.
I mean, the issue that I can see coming up, one of many, but one issue I see is that, we already have so many people coming in and asking for setback variances. I just vision of everyone wanting, setback variances for every ADU they're going to put in.
Oh yeah, well, the whole thing's a horror show, the way they approved it, in terms of it virtually eliminates single-family zoning. Right. It turns all single-family zoning into
multi-family
3 units.
Yes.
Well, but I will say what we have to our advantage is what you just brought up, is the setbacks.
Right, we can just not approve them.
These are some small spaces in the historic districts. I mean, I don't know if there's room for fitting. Obviously there's some bigger lots, but definitely a lot of tight lots. So, I don't
where it's tight, it's one thing. The equal objection to having 3 units on any single family dwelling lot is that they doesn't even need to be owner occupied.
Right.
I mean, it's turning every single family lot in town into up to 3 units, period.
Is this throughout the entire city?
Throughout the entire city.
So what about a subdivision that's?
Well, it's when Spring Forest wakes up or Forest Ridge, and they go, what's going on over there? They've carved the place, they turn the garage into a unit, and they split the house into 2. And how did they do that?
Do HOAs protect? I mean, if there's an HOA?
I haven't gotten a legal comment on it, but my understanding of reading of it is no, that doesn't protect.
So with the HOAs, the city or typically municipalities don't enforce those. So that would just be a private matter between the property owner and the HOA.
They could sue.
Correct.
But there's nothing illegal about buying a house in any subdivision in town, regardless of the HOA or deed restrictions or anything else, and put 3 units in.
But I mean, if the HOAs
As
are
rentals.
directly conflicting with that, right? I mean, because
The city ordinance prevails. City ordinance prevails.
Interesting. Okay. Well, it's going to be interesting.
I have
Yeah.
no problem signing on to something if you want to draft something, or if we want to draft something, because I think it's lunacy.
That's excessive. Then, and that wasn't that a very last minute change from what I'm
Yes.
understanding?
Oh, yeah,
Well,
it was.
The second one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, this was slipped under the rug in that approval. There were like approximately 40 of us that spoke to the commission that night. Only 3 did not agree entirely that this was a really bad idea. That the first idea that a residential structure could have a dwelling unit in it or on the property, but it would have to be owner occupied. You couldn't just turn it into a two rental lot. And that's what they threw out and said, no, it's open season. Really stupid. There was a workshop. I will mention that there was a discussion that I think everybody was informed about, where John and Andrew and several of us were in on it. In addition to making a very direct communication to the commission regarding ADUs, we talked about the whole idea of at least on a bi-monthly or quarterly basis that the city commission see our face, that we are before the commission reminding them of what we do and its positive effect on the quality of life in the community. Because it's easy for us to be just kind of out there somewhere and not a force to be reckoned with.
I think though too, I mean, our hands have been tied for many years without having a full-time historic planner. You know, our ability to do outreach, to do more, just even like we were talking about tonight, I can't help but think, we lose people like Sal who realizes, wow, we've lost so much. I mean, and this has been over the last few years. What was it? What did you say, Jay? 2014? Is it that long? Yeah. So since 2014, we haven't had the support for historic preservation in Gainesville. So what, 6 years in a booming economy? I mean, it's not surprising that we've lost a lot in the last 6 years. And, I think until we make some change. And I mean, realistically, our city needs, everyone is wanting to see Gainesville be preserved in various ways. And I think, we need to have, whether that be the city plan board or, I just feel like Gainesville, there needs to be a vision. I think certainly our role is to protect our historic structures, but expansion of that. I know we did the mid-century modern survey. The things like that we need to really be protecting right now, we're not. And you know what? The encroachment on those areas, this ADU is just one more thing, but there also needs to be a vision. I'm not sure where it ever went with the Main Street project. Does anyone know what the?
Well, that's what Kara was
right.
talking about, that she had, and then Sal, but then now Sal's gone, so.
Right. And things like that, though, would be instrumental in really changing things. And then, of course, having some sort of design guidelines. Definitely our downtown needs help. It is especially now losing so many restaurant closures as a result of COVID and so many things that we have happening right now. I think, it's nice to see some of the decisions to open up the streets. Should there be more conversations about less traffic in our downtown area, allowing things like that, especially now, because, I think we're in for a long haul too, of where dining outside, it may need to be a thing for a while. So, maybe we can take some of what's happening right now and open up some possibilities. I know we've talked about those things in the past. Well, how do we start to push those through? And maybe we can be a voice of that as well, looking at future planning of what's happening in our downtown, because we don't want to lose everything that we have. All we had was restaurants. It would be nice to see. If we have people outside, is it supporting the arts community, allowing, music, art on our public streets? How do we do this to really allow people to have venues? I think these are all things we need to be thinking about.
I'm glad you actually brought that up. So we are in the process of doing a downtown plan. We just, I believe the commission just approved a consulting firm to actually work on that. I don't have any specifics because I think this just happened. Maybe last month, maybe the last commission meeting. So that is something that we'll be starting. We'll definitely get you all involved in that process.
What's the brief? There's a consultant to look into more of downtown and
actually just preparing a downtown strategic plan.
Okay.
Well, I would think that at least some of us from the commission should be involved with that, from the board should be involved, or the whole preservation board involved with that.
Yeah, as soon as I get some more specifics, which again, I think this is very early in the process, and of course it's occurring during this time. So in terms of what that process is going to look like if we're still in quarantine, once I find out more information, I'll let you all know.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
On that note.
Adjourned?
We are adjourned.
All right, meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.